Welcome to the Enduring Minds podcast, part of the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network. I'm one of your hosts, Evan Birch, and I'll be joined shortly by Jason Bahamundi today. Enduring Minds is where we explore the intersection of mental health and endurance sports, while breaking the silence surrounding men's mental health alongside the societal expectations and norms that discourage men from seeking help. We're here to have real, open, honest, and vulnerable conversations, creating a supportive space to share the struggles, victories, and everything in between that shapes who we are. So leave the shame, guilt, and fear at the door and join us for another episode of Enduring Minds. If you're new here, we're on our 9th episode. All previous episodes are on the Run Try Bike YouTube channel and on the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network on your favorite podcast platform, alongside 8 other incredible shows. Please subscribe, rate, review, and leave a comment, as that helps us grow the podcast and be able to tell more incredible stories. Jason, welcome to the show.
Hey, dude, how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing today?
I'm excited for the first time in now 9 episodes. I don't have sweaty palms, and it might be because you pronounced my last name correctly. I don't think I've ever listened to it before, but you nailed it. So
Nailed it. I've been working on that one in the mirror. Let's get into today's show. We are excited to be joined by Sachin Latti, or Sach as we call him, a former Canadian Border Services officer, endurance athlete, and soon to be the first person from the Canadian South Asian community to run across the country. Starting this June, Sachin will run coast to coast to raise awareness and support for men's mental health, while fundraising for organizations including the Canadian Men's Mental Health Foundation, Together We Can, Kids Play, and his own Sachin Motion Fund that support many organizations across the country. And we'll hear more about those other foundations shortly from Sach. Grounded, calm, and deeply committed, Sach's mission is more than miles. It's about breaking the silence around mental health, especially in communities where vulnerability is still taboo. His journey through service, struggle, and strength is helping redefine what courage looks like for men, for first responders, and for an entire generation watching him step forward. Sach, welcome to Enduring Minds.
Hey, buddy, how you guys doing?
Good, good. Are you training today? Did you already get your running?
Yeah, I'll be running 40 today.
Oh, just 40. It's just kind of 40. I love when we can have conversations like that.
Yeah, it sounds. I gotta probably, reevaluate how I say things around certain types of people, because some people might not understand. So I'm in the right crowd to be able to say it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Jason and I, we normally have some questions that we kind of start with, and we kind of let the conversation roll where it goes. Maybe I'll just kind of start off how we first met. We met at a BC Backyard Ultra, the inaugural year, and Sach was running at the race, and I was running there as well too. And to hear you just say, like, I'm running 40K today, and then to also see the state you were in after that first backyard. What is it like to be able to say I'm running 40 kilometers today, thinking back to that moment of that first time you kind of dipped your toes into that ultra space?
It's a great question, man. And to be honest, I don't think I've reflected enough on that sort of time, for that sort of difference or time lapse. So I've been thinking about it this morning for the last 45 minutes, and it's a trip, man. I remember exactly how many kilometers I ran that day. It was 47 kilometers and about 1,500 meters of vertical gain, and I was wrecked. I was wrecked. I didn't know how to eat properly. I'd never even done a 5K race before entering that one. I hadn't, I had no clue at all what to do. And today I ran, so Sunday I ran 42 kilometers. Yesterday I ran 40, and today I'm gonna run another 40. So it's a trip, man. It's a trip to reflect on that and um, understand, or at least reflect on how much work it's been to get from where I was to where I'm here today. So I'm very grateful and very appreciative of all the people I've met over the last 3-4 years and to where I am here today.
growth-wise, going back to that day to today, and I'm not talking about the ability to run further or faster, but growth wise, from a mental aspect of I'm wrecked. This is so hard to 42K, 40K, 40K. I can do it. Like, are there moments in this journey so far that you can pinpoint that you go, aha, that is a moment in which growth occurred?
Mm. Well, I think for to recognize growth, there has to be constant reflection. And I have reflected over many, many things. And I think not as much from a physical perspective, but from the mental perspective, I've done a lot. And man, there are more. I mean, I can't pinpoint one. There have been so many. It's almost like I've been really chasing growth for the last 4 or 5 years mentally. And every single thing I do allows me to grow mentally. Everything. And I put myself in every environment that allows me to actually develop and grow mentally. So it'd be hard for me to pinpoint. I mean, like that meeting with Evan, the first time I met him, that was a growth moment for me. I'm a dude who just entered a run that was like epic, and I didn't even make it to the ultra distance point, right? Like I was just a beginner, and he did much more than I did as far as I remember. And from what I remember, in my eyes, he was an ultra marathoner, and I was just this dude. So yeah, there's been infinite numbers of moments where I've been um, so fortunate to have met people that have done so much more than I have, where I can reflect on what they've done and then take it and incorporate it in my own life.
So you mentioned constant reflection, and I want to get to know you a little bit better, and I want to get to understand this option or opportunity of constant reflection. So how did you learn to do that? Because in today's world, right, it's moving so fast that most people are on to tomorrow's scenario before they've even had a moment to reflect on what's happening today, let alone what happened yesterday. How did you learn to put yourself into those scenarios where you could actually stop and reflect so that you can then go forward and grow?
Mm, I think I've always kind of had that sort of capability, but I've refined it over the last 5 years. And I think it fundamentally comes down to an innate curiosity. And I'm just a curious person. And so I ask a lot of questions. And I think that's where reflection starts. So I think a lot of people aren't as curious as they should be, or um, they are curious, but don't engage that curiosity to answer the questions that they might have for themselves. They just keep moving forward. And for me, I I make it a point now. If I have a question or if I'm curious about something, I'm finding out the answer then and there. I don't skip it. And we're fortunate to live in an environment where we have the technology to be able to explore the curiosities or the questions that we have. So why not answer those questions and reflect on them whenever we have the opportunity to do so?
When you talk about curiosity, most of us would be like, "Oh, I'm curious, like what it feels like to run, a half marathon, and I'm going to train for it for 6 months." Your curiosity has obviously gone, I'll say, to that like ultra extreme, whatever somebody wants to call it. I mean, I don't call it that. I call it as like me just chasing something that I like. I see a string and I pull it, and I'm like, I want to go in that direction. Now, choosing to run across Canada, like when we first met, this wasn't initially like on your mind when you, at least you weren't verbalizing it. Um, that curious nature that you have, like, how did curious of running a backyard ultra to running ultra distance to running 60 marathons in 60 days turn into a cross Canada journey that is really going to be, you've talked about the South Asian community and being the first person to attempt to run across Canada from the South Asian community, which I know is a big part of kind of your internal like drive. And race, color, creed aside, the thought of running across Canada for anybody, that's a big thing. So how did Curious turn into let's go across Canada?
Yeah, so I didn't verbalize it a few years ago, but it was always in my mind to do it. I probably started verbalizing it maybe a year and a bit ago. But to be full disclosure, when I first started running, before I even ran my 100K ever, it was to run across Canada. So every effort that I've had each year, that each thing that I've done each year, I've had a challenge, and each year has progressively increased my workload to be able to get to the stage. So I've been on a 5-year plan. Not very many people have known this, but I've been at it for 5 years to run across Canada, and each effort that I've done has been a training block for me to be able to improve myself. Now, the curiosity piece to that, um, why Canada? And to be honest, I'm not sure where it came from, man. I was in such a dark spot 5 years ago, and I was basically in the hurt locker mentally, and I needed something to kind of sink my teeth into and to stay focused and to do something for other people rather than thinking about how messed up my life was. And I live in Canada, man. It's built into the fabric of our country of doing things for other people by running across the country. So it came divine intervention. I don't know what you want to call it, man. It's just an idea came in my head. I hadn't even ran a race in my life when I came up with the thought to do it. Um, and I wasn't a runner. I was a bodybuilder and a jiu-jitsu guy. So for me to even voice that out to people, that's why I didn't really say it to very many people, because people at the time when I just started running, they were saying I was crazy. If I started talking about running across Canada, man, it would have been a wrap. People would have been probably like, closing the door on me. But to answer your question, the curiosity, I don't know where the idea of running across Canada came from. It just appeared in my head. I suspect it comes from, or it came from, um, significantly damaged ego and uh, really so low self worth and no confidence at the time when I started thinking about these things. And as a really damaged ego at the time, I was like, "F this! I'm going to show everybody and prove myself, whatever that means." And it was a real toxic headspace. But I think over the years and over all the miles and connecting with so many different people, it's evolved 100%, where I don't even like, it's not about proving anything anymore. It's just about, finishing a thing that I started, demonstrating what's possible given effort and consistency, and raising a ton of money for other people.
Yeah, you talk about doing it for yourself, and that was a big turning point for myself. So I can mirror that 100%. I used to chase podiums. I used to chase people. I used to always be looking over my shoulder at what other people were doing in a race to see if they were going to catch me. And now it's one of those things, like as soon as you can find that drive to like do it for yourself first and foremost, but then also attach it to the other purpose that you have now with these foundations that you're supporting, and your own foundation that you're helping support other smaller charities with. I think that's just such a beautiful space to come at it from, when internally, like the drive is coming from within and not from the external anymore, which is not an easy flip for many people. And going through a mental health journey can do that for somebody. So I just wanted to kind of touch on that. I'll let Jason go ahead with the next one here.
Yeah. So you said you were going to prove to others, right? I'm going to show you was kind of the mindset. And I wrote this down before you said that. I said, doing it for others is admirable. But that statement of I'm going to show you means you're doing it for yourself. So while you're doing it for others and helping others, what are you personally getting out of it? Is it still a moment of I want to prove to you that I can do this, and still going back to that dark place and pulling yourself out?
Yeah, I think for me, I've kind of moved away from that dark place. I realized it was kind of toxic, man, and I could have probably held on to that and kept moving with that energy, but I think it would have been very one-dimensional, and it would have been a challenge for me to connect with people in the right way. Because for me, I don't look at myself as a runner, man. I don't look at myself as an ultra endurance athlete. I don't look at any of those things. I just become whatever I need to become to be able to execute against the goal. And for me, the goal is to run across Canada and help as many people as possible through that platform. And if that means it turns me into an ultra endurance athlete, okay, cool. Um, I'll turn into one. And after I'm done the run across Canada, maybe I want to do something else and I'll turn into something else. But from that perspective, I think now it's turned into more of like, I want to see what I'm capable of. I want to see if I can do the thing. Um, and it's more of a cleaner perspective, or a more pure or righteous direction, I think, rather than look at me and I can do this. I'm going to show you. Man, the reality is, if I were to think that way, I've already proved enough, man. Like, you know, what I mean, honestly, man, if I told you or explained to you some of the things I've had to go through, or not, no, let me rephrase that. Some of the things I've put myself through to be able to come out the other end, you'd be like, how did you even do it, man? Like, so for me, it's like, you know, I've haven't been employed for about 2 years. I haven't received an income for 2 years. Um, Yet I'm still training like a full-time athlete, and trying to raise as much money and awareness for other people. So, you know, and basically in 3 years, I've run over 16,000 kilometers and raised over $80,000 for charity. I mean, I don't really have much else to prove to myself, you know, to other people, right? Like, now it's like, okay, what else can I do? What else is possible? How else can I push myself to another level? That's kind of where the space I'm in now, rather than, oh, I need to prove it to other people.
It's interesting because I had a heart to heart with my sister this morning. I wasn't expecting to have two episodes of Enduring Minds, but I had one with my sister this morning about some family stuff. And one of the things I said to her was, what are you doing for yourself? Like, and when I asked that question of her, I followed up with, it's going to sound selfish that you need to answer that question of what are you doing for yourself? Because you're worried about what other people perceive of you and you get into this whole idea of selfishness. But for you, it is the same thing, right? Like if I'm out there doing stuff for myself to grow, to get better, to enhance my health, to enhance my mental health, outside perception might be, why are you so selfish? Why are you only focusing on yourself? My thought process is, in order for me to help you, I have to be in a position to do that, which means taking care of myself. Is that a mindset that you also have, which is, look, I need to take care of my house, clean up my messes, go through my traumas so that I can be there for you? And part of that is running across Canada and providing an opportunity to raise funds for some of these local charities and smaller charities.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can't help anyone unless you help yourself first, right? And so I'm looking at it more from like a leadership perspective, right? And you know, who's gonna listen to you if your house is a mess, you know? And who's gonna appreciate what you have to say or what you're trying to do if you can't take care of your own business? So for me, it's more of like, and so so I'm starting small, right? So I'm not even looking at the grand scheme or scale. I can just look at my daughter, right? Like, was divorced. My daughter was 2. She'll be 8 in another couple weeks here. So it's been 6 years since the divorce, ish, in and around there. And I wasn't a good dad at that time. Like, I wasn't my best self, you know, and I wasn't a great husband either. Probably a pretty crappy one. Not probably. I was a crappy one. And so now, if I just look at from my direct contacts around me, I bet you could even ask my ex-wife or my ex mother-in-law. Okay, who was he then? Who is he now? They might say some positive things. They might. They might say some positive things. Um, but my daughter is absolutely gonna recognize the difference from who I was to who I am today. I have way more patience, more time for her, more compassion. Our relationship is so much better than it was, and that's all because I was working on myself, trying to manage and sort out the things that I needed to sort out first. So now I'm in a position, you know, I don't try to tell people anything anymore. I used to be that guy who'd be like, "Hey man, you should do this, you should do that," and what I recognized was people didn't want to hear it. And so what I try to do now is just, okay, put myself in order, do my best, do what I can do. And if people want to ask me a question and see how I'm doing things, then cool, I'll share it. And I think it means a lot more if you're leading by example rather than just chirping all day,
I'm glad you brought up your daughter, Satch, because I have two girls as well, 7 and 10. So they grew up through my own healing journey as well too. And there was many times, and I'm curious if you relate to this as well, that there was a significant amount of time that I feel like I lost with them in a very big way. Um, whether because I wasn't present or because I wasn't emotionally evolved enough to be able to be there for them in the way that they needed me. And that wore on me a lot. So I don't know if you can relate to that aspect of it in that kind of beginning healing journey, or even before you started healing. You kind of look back on it now, you're like, man, like, why was I yelling at that instant? Like, what am I teaching them? And again, they're gonna do more of what they see rather than what we say. And I think that's the unique part about leading by example and doing these things and putting these things out there the way that we are. So yeah, I'm just curious kind of what your feelings were on kind of that stage with your daughter. And I think this is the stuff that we need to talk about more, because a lot of us keep this hidden. And yeah, I just think it's a very strong conversation to have, especially, you know, men with daughters.
Yeah, and first of all, for me, I'm so happy I had a daughter. It was probably one of the best things for me. I truly enjoy the relationship that we're cultivating. Now, having said that, I reflect back at some instances and circumstances where I could have probably behaved better, but that's with every relationship all the time now, right? For me, I just try to think how I could do things better. In the past, I probably would have beat myself up quite significantly. Oh, why did I do this? Why did I do that? And why didn't I do something better? But what I realized over time was like that's just wasting energy on something I can't even shift or change. What I can acknowledge is that I wasn't the greatest dad, and what I can do is be a better one today and keep doing the better things moving forward. So I can relate to you 100%, Evan. Yelling or acting in a manner that's probably not the best um, environment to create for a young child, but it can't change the past, right? And so I'm not going to dwell on it too much, other than enough to where I can understand to correct that behavior and then keep moving forward. And that's kind of how I function, man. I try not to dwell on things. If I do something incorrect, that's why I reflect as much as I can. And if I reflect on something that happened, I'll engage the person and straight up just have that conversation, be like, "Hey, man, I'm sorry. I behaved in this kind of way," or or I just don't behave that way as best as I can. So I try to save the energy for positive interactions and not beating myself up anymore.
Yeah, that line of, if you knew better, you would do better.
Hmm.
We didn't know better. And
No.
I think that's the part about it. And that can let go of that shame and guilt and all those other aspects. And I think the cool thing is I've heard this analogy, I've said it a few times before, where, you know, we're creating this like ceiling for ourselves and growing and building and building. Like, our ceiling is going to become our kids' floor, and we have the ability to give them like a really amazing starting point by having that emotional intelligence ourselves and being able to share that, because I didn't have those tools before, and now that I have those tools and I get to share those with my kids, it's huge. Like, I'm like bringing their floor up every time, so when they get older, their floor is like my ceiling, and that's as far as I was able to take it. And it's like, you can go to the moon now. And I think that's just such an amazing gift to be able to give them now, is through my own healing I get to like give them an opportunity to like be that much stronger themselves.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I might want to push back a little bit there, just or maybe not push back, but maybe provide a bit more nuance. You said something that kind of struck me, where you're, I might have misinterpreted this, so correct
Mm.
me if I did or not. It sounded like to me, okay, you've got your ceiling, and then now that'll be your kids' floors. But I don't know if anyone has a ceiling if we keep moving and keep doing what we need to do. So, um, for me, I look at it like I'm going to keep getting better at whatever I'm going to do. I have zero ceilings, just like our kids will have zero ceilings. There's no ceiling, and so I hope I didn't misinterpret what you said, but that's kind of what
Yeah.
I got out of it.
Yeah, I completely agree with the no ceiling aspect. I think it's the people that are stuck who aren't growing. that's where like the ceiling can only go so high if you're not in that kind of growth phase of wanting to move forward and do better for yourself so your kids can do better. So I agree. Like I think if you constantly have that growth mindset of wanting to continue, I think there's limitless potential in that.
It's amazing. I don't know if this show in and of itself has led me to become a much more intentional listener. But I literally wrote after Sasha's answer prior to the ceiling conversation, confrontational conversation, because that doesn't happen a lot, right? Where and when I use the word confrontation, I don't mean putting your fists up and fighting. I mean a follow up question to push back, as you used earlier, Sash. You said you'll have those conversations with people to sort of understand better. And oftentimes it can be confrontational because emotions get in the way, and it's like, that's not what I meant to say. This is what I meant to say. And so what I wrote down was, do confrontational conversations, follow up questions, pushback conversations, do they get easier? Have they gotten easier for you? And is that the result of the reflection component, the growth component, the collaboration mindset versus the competition mindset?
Yeah, I've definitely gotten better at it. 100% gotten better at it. And that's because I've engaged it very frequently. And I have people around me where we do that with each other. And we encourage each other to um, push back or provide insight or whatever it is. And I think, if you look at teams, right? Very elite teams, and I'm not even just talking sports, but I'm just talking just teams in general. That's what they do, man. Like, I mean, you kind of have to have conversations and then, have deeper conversations and see if there's been you can pull out nuance from those or whatever, right? Just kind of just going back and forth to create new ideas perhaps. And I think definitely I've gotten better at it. Fortunately for me, I've cultivated a group of people around me that engage in that kind of behavior regularly or that sort of conversation regularly. And I enjoy it, to be honest. I have fun with it, right? Like I love talking. I don't like small talk, but I do like meaningful conversations. And for me, meaningful conversations is my jam, man. I can have I hate running. Full disclosure, man. I freaking hate it. I don't like it. I do it because of whatever. It's a tool that's been very helpful for me, so I'll continue doing it. But from what I truly love and enjoy is this, having these kind of conversations with people and learning from others through that conversation and just connecting. So for me, it's a fun thing to do.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. Like, and I do enjoy running, but I do enjoy this a lot more where we ask questions of each other. We try to break through to get to an emotional answer that allows a person to grow. And it's been amazing. We've been doing this since late last year. And one of the things that I'm understanding more and more and learning more and more about myself is that strength comes from being vulnerable. But vulnerability for men is taboo in the grand scheme of things, right? Oftentimes people are like, you can't show this, you can't show that, you can't do this, you can't do that. As you made your way out of that dark space that you mentioned earlier, and you've learned, I presume, that being vulnerable gives you the strength to be more curious, to be more reflective, to do more meditation, to do more journaling. Is that something you could even have imagined doing? Let's go back 6 years ago, 7 years ago, maybe as a teenager. Is that something you could even have thought about? Or is it just something that has evolved because you found yourself in that dark space?
Mm, I think it's probably a combination of things. I'm much more vulnerable now than I ever have been, but I guess it's an evolution of life, right? Like when you're younger, sometimes you might not be as open as you might want to be, perhaps because you're self-conscious of various different things. And for me, I was a very self-conscious kid, and I was, you know, grew up in an environment where I was bullied, and then I grew up in a South Asian household, so discipline was applied in a different manner than probably some of my um, you know colleagues at school. So there were environments where I didn't feel like I could be very vulnerable, or I was scared, or probably didn't know how to. So it took me some time to build confidence in myself, enough confidence to be able to not really care as much and just say what I think. And I think over the last 4 or 5 years, all the things that I've been doing have helped build that confidence to a level for me that's um, much better than it used to be. I think, because I've done a bunch of things I never thought in a million years I could ever do. And, that's running is one of them, but fundraising, public speaking, writing, like all the different things I never thought I could ever do because I never thought I was smart enough or good enough at, or whatever you want to say, has built confidence in me. Observing myself do things I never thought I could do has built me up in a certain way. And that's not because of running. That's because I've decided to move in a direction that has a growth mindset attached to it. And anything that I enter into, I want to get good at or get better at. And so that allows me to, and that curiosity piece also allows it too. So if I'm curious about something, I'm going to go towards it and engage it. So all these different things are elements to what helped build that confidence. And to your point at the beginning of this question was, men aren't as vulnerable and we shouldn't do this or who shouldn't do that. And I wrote down next to me as you were saying that, who are these guys who are saying that you can't be vulnerable? What kind of guys are they? Well, I don't think I was a guy who would make fun of people if they were being vulnerable, but I probably kept my mouth shut. And now, who are the people who are chirping at people? They're usually people who can't and don't do much with their lives. And I am quite polite on this podcast right now, and most podcasts I'm on, I'm pretty cordial and polite, but I can be a savage, and I've been known to be one. So if someone were to say to me, "Oh, you're being weak," or "You're this or that because you're vulnerable," I'm just like, "Cool, bro. Like, I mean, I know how to fight. I know how to do this. I know how to do that." I would argue I'm your. You could call me like your. I guess your quintessential or typical kind of alpha type of male, right? Like based on sort of criteria that you might want to put down. And I think it's incumbent upon people like me to be vulnerable to show that, hey man, it's all good, man. I don't care what that dude says over there. And if he's got an issue, we can have a conversation or we can step outside. Either way, we can handle it. So that's kind of my perspective on it.
Yeah, Jason and I had this conversation, I think, on one of our in-between episodes, back and forth that Jason and I do without the guests. And we were talking about the people that you would come across that, again, in that vulnerability space, that most of the time the people that are nervous to be around it or talk about it are the ones that are, not ready to talk about it themselves and what they went through. And then the people that are chirping are the ones that can't meet it within themselves and would rather push against it like very hard. And the way that they do that is to bring other people into their belief system. And I think that's like a really slippery slope of, and understanding everybody's entitled to their own opinion in that, and to not get too caught up in it. But I heard you say build confidence probably 6 times in that last little bit. And I love it because the quote that I always like to throw around that I use a lot is, you don't find confidence, you build it. It's not something that can be found. It's something that is built through action, and all those actions and stacking bricks and doing all of these things that you're doing. I think is like, again, that's how you get that confidence. Cause I was same thing. I was a very like timid teenager. I'd be that chameleon that would adapt to everybody else because I didn't want to be the kid being shoved in the locker.
Yeah.
I would be the one.
I can relate to that.
Right? Like I would just be like, you know what, hockey guys, I'm like, okay, I can get around. As long as I'm friends with you, like I won't be the one in the locker. Which again, like it's kind of like this way of like hiding yourself in small ways for a very long period of time as a kid. And I'm sure I did that as an adult, and that's why I moved into maybe a service job and other things. And But I guess what I'm kind of coming back around to is when we're talking about the vulnerability piece, I think Jason and I have shared a lot of our own kind of vulnerabilities on the shows. And like we're getting into the deeper stuff that maybe we haven't voiced before. So I would love to hear, obviously, coming to this run across Canada, it's a big endeavor. There's no doubt. What emotionally or physically are you grappling with right now as these days approach that you maybe haven't talked about or haven't shared in a big way that you want people to know about before you do this? I think it would just be a beautiful spot to be able to share something that maybe is a little bit more personal, that to try to open it up for other people.
Yeah, I mean, there's not very many people I can talk to about the run across Canada and how to do it, right? Like, there's a small number of people that have actually done it, right? And so for me, there's a level of like, um, in this moment, I'm like, from a fitness perspective, I'm ready. Like, I mean, VO2 max is there. My body can handle, volume and all that kind of stuff. Um, but when you're talking 70 to 80 days every single day, or, you know, day after day after day, that's more of a mental grind, right? And so for me, um, I know I'm going to get it done. I'm just trying to now dial in that mindset perspective on how to get it done, and how to consume it all in a way that's um, helpful for me and then helpful for others as they're watching the process unfold. So I guess like what's my biggest challenge at this moment? Uh I haven't really thought about this might sound strange. I haven't really thought much about the actual run.
Mm.
I've been kind of staying in the moment and doing the runs that I have in front of me. Like I'm running 200 250K a week, right? So it's a lot of volume for me anyway. And so I'm kind of still just tackling that. And then as I think about the run across Canada, I'm thinking more about the last day of the run across Canada. And I get emotional thinking about it. So I try not to open up that can now because I want to save it for when I get to that moment. But I do think about it, and um, what it would be like to dip my toe in the ocean in St. John's, how Terry Fox did. And then all the people that have supported me being there, and then going through this epic journey with a small group of people, and what that's going to do with our relationships and for our relationships, and how much money will be raised and what that's going to do. So I feel that, and I use that sometimes to fuel me on runs. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking in the moment. I haven't shared that out loud. I'm just kind of thinking in the moment, um, what I feel, and what it might feel like when I get to the end.
It's exciting for me to think about the start of this conversation when we talked about reflection, and we've come to this scenario in which you're putting your toes in the ocean in St. John's after running for so long, and the opportunity for reflection. And I know you can't answer this question right now, but when you do dip your toes in the water, I would love to be there to ask you, what are you reflecting on today? Because there's going to be physical pain, right? Your feet may hurt, your legs are going to be sore and tired, but I have to imagine that the enormity of the event is going to override that soreness and pain because of the things that you did during that time, not just for others, but to reflect back on where you were 5 years ago, coming through those dark times with this mindset of, I'm going to run across Canada one day. And then here you are. And for those of you who are listening on audio, you cannot see Sasha's face, but it is telling a story as I'm asking or making this statement. Like, it is already telling a story. And I hope that the moment that you put your toes in the water is as grand as you expect it to be, because this is a big undertaking. Um, and now I'm getting emotional thinking of you going through this process, because
Yeah.
it's one of the things that men don't talk about is the traumas that we've gone through in life. And I've referenced your traumas a number of times. I know Evan and I have shared his traumas, and I have my own. And now I think about you going through this process and healing yourself. And I wonder if that's something you've thought about, because we've talked about the charities, but have you thought about the opportunity you're providing for other men from a healing perspective through what you're doing? Because I'm telling you right now, it is impacting me, and you haven't even started running yet.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, man, I don't know how often I think about that, because it's overwhelming. So I try not to think about it much, because I'm a pretty empathetic person and I feel a lot. And so I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. It's probably a good thing, because I feel a lot of people's pain, and it gives me fuel, because I can understand what it feels like to be struggling with no one caring about anything, or feeling like no one cares. And so I've had a lot of people say things to me that, I've impacted them, or it helps them, or whatever the case is. And I don't want to disrespect that at all. It's really um, kind, but I don't know how to receive it. It's a challenge, and I'm still trying to figure that out.
I think that response and that answer is what is the right response and answer. I don't know how to receive it, but I am receiving it, right? Because I think about, for myself, the emotional impact of sharing my story, talking to people, and understanding that the world is fucking cruel, right? And the more we talk about this stuff, my hope is that there is a person out there who hears that the world is cruel, but you can take one step forward and help yourself, which then means you're taking one step forward to help others. And that's literally the journey that you're going on when you go across Canada. Every step forward is a helpful step, not just for others, but for yourself. And I can't thank you enough for taking on this challenge and then sharing it with others as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one piece to that, man. Well, first of all, thank you for the kind words. The world is cruel, but it's also a world that you can create around you, so it doesn't have to be, right? And what I've done over the last 5 years is create the world around me that I wanted, right? And anyone can create the world that they want to be involved in, because we control everything. People, I think, have given their agency away to other things, to the government, to other family members, friends, whoever it is. For me, I don't want to give it to anyone other than myself. And I want to be able to create everything that I want to experience in this life, because I'm the only one who can create it for myself. No one else can do it for me. So if I want to live in a world that isn't cruel and harsh, I can create an environment around for myself that maybe has elements of it, but also has a lot of love, compassion, and friendship and joy and all the other things. And now it's more of a balanced world, because I don't want to get rid of the cruelty, because without the cruelty, we can't understand what the goodness is, right? So I think having them and then understanding them better on a more nuanced level is um, the way I like to move forward.
I'm trying not to overshadow that last section there, because I think, Jason, with that question, I think you really hit on what Enduring Minds is about. and why we're doing this podcast. And I think the unique part about everybody's trauma, again, trauma is something that happens to you. It's like it's something that happened to you. And then it also is what happens inside of you because of those traumas. And really, like, we are a collection of our choices, not a result of our circumstances. Like you said, Satch, we get to choose. Like, every day is a choice. Like, you get to choose the direction that you go. And yes, some of those choices are going to be difficult, and some are going to be easy, and some are going to be ending up not necessarily being the right or wrong choice, because I don't believe in that. I think every choice can be made right. But you talk about empathy and how you're a very empathetic person. And I have always thought of that about myself as well, too, being in emergency services for 20 years and working in that line of service. I think everybody has that level. And somewhere along the way, that empathy broke for me. And I'm curious if it was the same thing for you, that you've like found your way back to empathy, because I just, in our conversations and us over the last 4 to 5 years of knowing each other, just understanding that it's like empathy does waver every now and then, especially when you go through your own stuff. So how would you recommend, or tools or things that you have gone through for other men to really kind of tap into that side of things? Because it's very easy to push it away and say it doesn't exist and treat people like robots and not be non-empathetic, but just literally almost just be like a little bit dead inside. So I'm just curious, like, what was it for you? Like, was it always there, or is it something you've had to like cultivate over the last little while?
I think I've always been compassionate and empath and that kind of stuff, but it's definitely been cultivated over the last 5 years, because I was a wall for a number of years. Like I was a dick, man. I was pretty harsh and cold, and I could be, you know, perceived as intimidating and all the other things that you'd want to put onto someone or label onto somebody, because I was walled up, man. I didn't address a lot of things that I probably needed to get addressed. But over the last 5 years, I've addressed, or at least tried to address, as many things as possible personally and mentally to um, be more empathetic and compassionate. Because, man, look, what am I doing, man? I'm not a runner. I'm someone who's trying to help other people through running. And if I can't connect with people, man, who's gonna like? It's not gonna resonate. It's not gonna help. It's not gonna do anything. So I had to learn how to become um, not as walled up and more open and more compassionate and more vulnerable. And as I allowed myself to be those things, I was able to give space to other people um, without judgment. And so I've had a lot of practice, right? I'm not not special in any regard, man. I'm just stubborn, consistent, and I work my butt off. And over the last 3 4 years, primarily over the last 3 years, I've been super hyper focused on trying to get better at communicating with people and connecting with people face to face, in person, because I've traveled the country, right? Like I've traveled all over Canada, engaging with, just different races or different speaking engagements or different whatever. And through those experiences, man, um, it's impossible not to be compassionate and empathetic, man, because you're hearing so many different stories, man. Like it's like, how do you not like I'm like just the suit like I've met so many people who've inflicted self-harm on themselves and had conversation with them and what happened through their experiences, and then just various different people, man. It's almost impossible, if you've gone on the journey that I've been on, to not um appreciate the honor and respect the people given me by sharing those things. Like just this morning, I got a direct message on my Instagram from someone I have no clue who it was or is. I posted a reel a few days ago, just kind of giving statistics of some of the mental health crises and some of the issues that people are dealing with. And this person messaged me saying that their child at the age of 33 committed suicide last year, and kind of shared her story and was a firefighter. And I guess I get messages like that all day, like frequently, man. And I don't want to be disrespectful, so I have to figure out how to properly engage those things. And if I'm walled up, I can't. So I have to be open. And um, it takes a lot of energy to do that sometimes, right? Because it's especially when you care a lot. It's so like for me, if I read those messages and if I stay looking at that message, man, I could really get upset and sad. So sometimes I have to put a cap on it and keep doing the thing. But having said that, I'm I like to feel it sometimes too, and so and experience that because I think it keeps me honest. It keeps me on task. It keeps me moving in the direction I need to. It reminds me why I'm doing everything that I'm doing, and that's that, man.
We're running out of time, so we're going to jump into a section of our podcast that we call Misogi. But before we do that, I just want to commend you for recognizing that sometimes you need to tap the pause button and gather yourself before you can move forward. Because I think if we go back to this idea of constantly moving forward, eventually we will burn ourselves out and not be able to help others. So, kudos and cheers to you for recognizing when you need those moments and hitting the pause button to allow a resetting, shall we say, and then being able to move forward.
Thanks, man.
Uh, so, like I said, we call this segment of our show the Stop, Start, Continue, and it's based on the Japanese tradition of Misogi. At its core, Misogi is about transformation, shedding old habits, beliefs, and ideas, embracing and letting in a new and more powerful version of yourself while letting go and surrendering in order to grow. And we're going to invite our community members who show up on the show to engage in this concept. So we're going to present to you Stop, Start, Continue, and would love to hear your thoughts on it. So for the stop component, if you had to choose one mental or emotional habit you want to leave behind this year, what would it be and why?
Can you give me a bit more information on what we're looking at here? Because like I don't know where to even start.
Yeah, and it's a complicated question that's presented in a very simple format.
Right.
So the thing is, what I would like to stop for myself is the comparison game. Always looking back and saying, well, if Sasha's doing this, I should be as well, instead of looking at myself and saying, this is the thing that I want to do.
Hmm. Well, I guess for me, one of the things that really helped me was stopping beating myself up for things that were um, in my control or even out of my control, right? And I think, I was speaking to a friend of mine a few years ago who gave me some advice that helped me, and I started using it, and it was very helpful. So for me, it was like, if I did something or said something or acted in a manner that I didn't really like, I'd beat myself up. And it would probably take a few days. I'd ruminate over it. And this friend of mine was like, "Hey, man, that's cool. Like you did something wrong, or you feel like you did something wrong. Objectively look at what that thing is and take a note of it. Say how you're going to do it better next time, and keep moving forward." So that's kind of what I do now. If I say or do something that I could have probably done better at, that's why I reflect every single day, so I can reflect on those things and then objectively look at that scenario, think how I could have done it better, and then carry on.
I hope people listening to this understand that it's a work in progress, because you said some of the things you stopped doing, but your answer indicates that you're still working at it. And I think that that's the beauty of who we are as humans, is that we are works in progress. So for the start component, if you were to commit to a radical mental shift this year that would force you to grow in new ways, what would it be and why?
Chase adversity. Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be a run. It doesn't have to be anything physical. Whatever that thing is that's hard, just do it. And that could be having that conversation you don't want to have with somebody, or reading a book that's super challenging, that's going to get you to question yourself, whatever it is. And for me, that's been the critical piece in my sort of development, is always chasing adversity in whichever space that is, because it allows you to grow. and it allows you to get better at something and learn and whatever, right? So the only reason I've gotten to where I am today, well, not the only reason, that's not fair. One of the reasons I've gotten to where I am today is because I've chased adversity in every aspect. So if there's something that's happening, and let's say, I don't know, it's a random thing. If someone says, "Hey, we should do this thing," and my natural instinct is to say no. Actually, here's a good example. Okay, the marathon on Sunday. I did the Vancouver Marathon on Sunday. My manager um, messaged me on a Friday, so 2 days before the marathon. We hadn't registered for it, nothing. It's about 30,000 people attendance, the biggest one in Vancouver. And he's like, "Hey man, you want to do the marathon?" And right off the top of my head, I messaged back, "No, I don't want to do it." And I left it at that. I was like, "F that, man, no," because I didn't want to be around 30,000 people. I didn't want to. I did that half marathon a couple years ago, and it was for me. I don't like being around that many people in an area that I don't have that much control over, where they're all acting in a certain type of way. It's just I don't feel comfortable in it. And but then I thought about it. I was like, oh, because I don't want to do it, so I probably should do it. So we ended up figuring it out, and then the experience was great, man. And it turned out, it wasn't terrible. I had a great experience. I met with some cool people, and I learned something that day for myself. So chase adversity.
I love it. One of the things before we get to the continue piece that I wrote down earlier was that words have meaning. And you corrected yourself earlier. And instead of saying probably, you're like, no, this actually is the thing. And you just corrected yourself again by saying the one thing. And you're like, well, it's not just the one thing. It's, one of the things. And I think that's something that people also need to recognize, and something you've brought forward in this conversation is that words have meaning. And if you hear yourself saying something that isn't true to what you actually believe, correct yourself. It's okay to correct yourself. Um, On to the continue part. So if you had to symbolically cleanse or renew one aspect of your mental health within the next year, what would it be and why?
You can thank me for these questions, Satch.
Bro, man, this is I need to. You should. I gotta write papers on these things, man. They're long. No, but they're good questions, man. So can you repeat the question again?
Absolutely. So if you had to symbolically cleanse or renew one aspect of your mental health in the next year, what would it be and why?
Well, it keeps popping into my head, so I'll just say it. Not caring what others think. Right. I mean, I'm decent at it. I could always get better at it. I was terrible at it a few years ago. Always, kind of comparing myself to others. So I'd like to renew that and cleanse myself a bit more.
It's interesting because that was the thing that I would have stopped doing, right? And I think that's the beauty of these conversations. And it shows that different people from different walks of life, living in different areas, having gone through different things, can perceive things differently. We don't need to all be doing the same thing over and over and over again. And I've written about this a lot on my LinkedIn platform, and just recently on my Substack, I wrote, revolutionary or traditionalist. And it came from watching La La Land this past weekend, where John Legend's character says to Ryan Gosling's character, how can you be a revolutionary if you're always in a traditionalist mindset? And I took that to mean, how could I run my business? How can I be myself if I'm continuously comparing myself to somebody else and copy pasting, shall we say, the things that they're doing? And so it's just interesting to me to be able to sit here and hear your perspective on it. I've been talking to Evan for a number of months on a deeper level than just, hey, how many miles did you run today? And getting a perspective of him and other guest members. And I think that's one of the beauties of this show, is that we get to show people from different walks of life doing all sorts of different things on their path to better mental health.
Yeah, and I suspect probably there's a short list of the similar answers that probably everyone has. I think there's probably a lot of similarity amongst people, rather than how different we are as we think from a mental health perspective.
Yeah, you're definitely not the first person to take a 5 to 10 second pause answering those questions, and that was always the intent of those. Is we wanted the guests to really think about their own experience in everything that they've done, and that was kind of the impetus of it, is to like really have you like have a deep thought, and like you showed us that it's like, yeah, you're gonna have those deep thoughts, but that comparison of everybody else and similar answers, it just shows us that we're all not alone in this. Like we're all feeling the exact same thing all the time. We're
Mhm.
just not voicing it. And that's what this platform we're between Jason and I we're trying to build, is just create those conversations and spaces that are supportive, that people can voice those things and know that it's like, oh, like, yeah, like I am worried about what other people think. And I think that's a beautiful space to be. So
I'm going to
Yeah,
push
I
back
mean,
on you too, Evan, and say we're not trying to build, we are building.
thank you.
yeah, and I think
Trying is failing.
yeah, I think there's a. I just want to share this real quickly because I think because since we're talking about words matter, I was a few years ago. I wasn't really someone who paid attention to that until I met a friend of mine, and Evan knows him, Sean Taylor, and you know he when I first started talking to him about 4 years ago, and just a bit of background on him, he's a special operator, retired Tier 1 operator from JTF2, Canada Special Forces, ultra endurance athlete, entrepreneur, very successful person, performance coach, all that kind of stuff. So I started talking to him when I was really dealing with my mental health issues, like significantly, and as I started running, and I was barely a runner, and he advocated for words matter. So I'm having a conversation with him. I'm like, yeah, I'm not really an athlete, man. I'm just a dude who does things. He goes, no, you're a professional athlete right now. So as soon as I started just thinking of myself as a professional athlete, despite even getting paid anything, I started acting like one. So I think words matter, man. So like if people are trying to really get after things, and even like in the ultra endurance space, there's not that many professionals, right? But there's a ton of people that do it. And I suspect there are a lot of people who do it who do think of themselves as professional athletes. Because how can you run that much without thinking of yourself as a professional? So I think if people, the average human starts really thinking about the words that they use and start aligning themselves with those words, they'll see a significant difference in their life immediately. Like, I mean, today. So if people want to make a shift or a change in their lives today, start being critical of the words that they use and start applying them in a way that you'd want them to be applied so you can start seeing action and forward progress.
Yeah. You absolutely have to imagine yourself being the thing before you are. That's such a, yeah, I 100% aspire to that. I'm sure Jason can relate to that too. So Satch, we want to thank you for your vulnerability, your willingness to share pieces of your stories with us today, and really for just being vulnerable and just being here with us. Do you have any final thoughts, words of wisdom, or a story you want to leave us with?
Oh, I don't know, man. If I start telling stories, we're going to be talking all day. So we'll leave the stories for another time. But I just want to thank you guys for having giving me the opportunity to have a chat about various different things and connecting with you guys. And for anybody who likes to see people do or take on big challenges, feel free to go to my website at suchinmotion.com. And, you can see everything about the run across Canada, live tracker of where I'm running, donations can be made, all the 9 yards. So please hit the Instagram and the website, and let's have some fun over the next few months.
Yeah, Satch, I just wanted to quickly touch on, can you just let everybody know the charities that you're connected with that are going to be a part of the run? I think that would just be a really good touch point to end on.
For sure. So just yeah, and maybe I'll just kind of give a brief understanding of what the run actually looks like, so
Absolutely.
people who are part of the ultra endurance space can, if they're interested, they can track. So I start the run on June 16th, 2025 in Victoria, BC at the Terry Fox Memorial, mile zero. And June 16th is Father's Day, so it should be easy for people to remember. And I'll be running, so the goal is 80 to 100 kilometers a day on average, um, for until I get across the country. So 7,500 kilometers in 80 days ish, with And just to illustrate the vertical gain and run across Canada is like summiting Mount Everest 7 times. So that's the vertical gain plus the 7,500 kilometers. And we're doing it to raise awareness of funds for various different mental health charities across Canada. And we're looking at, so we're still kind of exploring that because the goal is to raise $1 million. And I think we can very much, like, we're in line to do that. And I think we're getting all our ducks in a row to make that happen. And I think we might be able to raise more than that. So we're still engaging with charities because I want to be able to support a few. And so I'm looking at it from a holistic perspective or a 360-degree perspective. Obviously, veterans and first responders is near and dear to my heart. So we'll be supporting a charity that supports veterans and first responders with occupational stress injuries. We have a couple meetings tomorrow with the Veteran Transition Network. So we'll likely be making a connection with them. And then Together We Can is the largest nonprofit men's addiction facility in Canada. They've also now support women with addiction. So we're going to be donating to them. The Canadian Men's Health Foundation is another charity that we're going to be supporting. And they're a national charity that supports men from physical, mental, spiritual perspectives in their health. And we're still finalizing the youth charity, but there are a few charities that we are in conversations with. One of which is Kids Play Foundation, which supports kids by keeping them away from drugs, gangs, and violence by giving them mentorship and youth programs. So, but we're still engaging a few more charities, but there'll probably be 3 to 5 different charities that encompass youth, addiction, men's health, and veterans and first responders.
No, that's beautiful, Sach. I'm hoping to join you on some of your time out across Canada. So we'll see how I got to get Tahoe 200 out of the way first and see how my body's doing after that. And then we'll see about joining you for some
when is the Tahoe?
June 13th to 18th is Tahoe. So I'm hoping it's not going to take me the 5 days. I'm pretty confident in that, but we'll see how my body heals after that. And hopefully in July, I'll be recovered and be able to join you for some time.
Well, either way, if you're not able to run, man, just come out and just kind of have some fun, man. Because just to illustrate for the listeners, we're going to be we'll have a full RV. It's going to be all deckled out with the sponsors and whatnot. We're going to have a full film crew documenting the entire process, social media content getting pushed out every single day, and for those people that want to come join, we'll be covering their costs as well. So like we'll be flying people out to, be part of the process if they want to be. So Evan, if you want to, make that happen, let me know or let the team know. We'll fly you out and cover your expenses and whatnot. And even if it's just to hang out and, eat some food.
Sounds good, man. So on behalf of Jason and myself, we want to thank you all for joining us on Enduring Minds episode 9. Here with Sach. We're a proud part of the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network, one of 9 incredible shows. Please subscribe, review, leave a comment, and rate the show, as it will allow us to bring incredible guests like Sach and their captivating stories to the Enduring Minds community. Until next time, let's continue going the distance and breaking the silence together.